Hey trackies, welcome back to another video. Please remember to smash that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. That's how the video gets you the YouTube algorithm. Share the video if you care. I hope you all care. So share, and yes, please sound off in the comment section below. All right, so trackies, we're out of time. So it's crunch time. We have to get to these previews. And yes, this video is gonna have all the female sprints. I will not be able to cover all the events, unfortunately. But as the event is ongoing, I will be giving you, updates as it relates to how the competition is going for the athletes in each event. So don't worry, I will be covering all the events. But that being said, let's dive into these female previews, and I'm excited. I want to start with the women's 100-meter hurdles. We have big things going there. Actually, we have the defending world champion Daniel Williams in this event. So guess what? We get to send a big bad four to the world championship. So I'm absolutely excited. No, Daniel Williams incidentally lines up here. Earlier on, she did indicate that she would not be coming, to the national senior championships. However, since Grand Slam is now cancelled, she decided, hey, what's more races? You know what I mean? I've already booked my spot so I can get, quality competition in Jamaica. And yeah, she's here, she's home, and she's ready to run. She lines up. Actually, right now, she's the third fastest, Jamaican based on times so far this season with her 12.53 seconds in the women's 100-meter hurdles. As I said, it matters not because she's already qualified, but of course, it will be interesting to see how she competes against an Akira Nugent. And I definitely think Akira Nugent being the fastest athlete this season, 12.30 seconds. Also, the national record holder with her 12.24 seconds track comes in for me as heavy favorite. So far, as I said, has done 12.30 seconds. I think she has timed her season perfectly. I remember last year watching her, and she pretty much started out, really strong in 2024. She was on the circuit competing strongly. However, the season seemed kind of topsy-turvy, for her. But this season seemed as though they hit it right on the nail on the head, actually, as it relates to her progression. We've literally seen her race in, race out, get incrementally faster, get incrementally better. So at the National Senior Championships, definitely think she's going to be turning out another superb performance. And I definitely think, as I said, she's going in there for the win, and she's the heavy favorite. Will she be able to challenge the national record? I definitely think that's in the cards. I definitely think it's in the cards, her challenging the national record. But I think, it actually is a bit more scary for Akira Nugent, because for me, if she challenges the national record now here, and I definitely think there's a lot more room, for improvement for her tightening up by the time we get to the World Championships track she's going to be a scary girl to turn back, woman to turn back by the time we get to the World Championships. And as I said, the monkeys are for her back. She's medaled now globally for Jamaica on the international stage, so she doesn't have to worry about that extra pressure on herself, and she just has to go out and just be free and run, right? And I'm excited for her. Another athlete to look out for is Megan Tapper. She's always there, ever present, ever ready. Has looked superb so far this season as well. So far, 12.50 seconds. I believe this is one of her fastest times coming into an actual trials, for a Megan Tapper. So it will be interesting to see, the performance that she drops. She's definitely, in my opinion, in top three as well for this women's 100-meter hurdles. Now, outside of these three athletes, things get a little bit more, tricky and interesting, because we have a number of collegiates, that are, taking part. One, Habiba Harris. Problem is, with Habiba Harris, I do see her registered. I don't know if she was registered before, she got, hurt. And I don't know how bad, she got hurt at the NCAA outdoor, or Division One outdoor track and field championships. But she's here. She's lined up, right? So far, she's run at 12.62. I believed she could have won at the NCAA Division One, track and field championships. However, that wasn't in the cards. It wasn't to be. I do think, though, there's a gap between what's going on in top three and the rest of the athletes, right? And I do believe, that one slot that is left, right? As I said, Daniel Williams has already booked her spot, right? So that one slot that is left comes, a bunch of athletes that are collegiate and a few professionals will be vying, in my opinion, for that one slot. And I'm actually looking at, if Habiba Harris is back to what her best was before she got hurt, I'm definitely looking at her, right? I'm also looking at a Shericka Hill. She's back, and I saw her competing recently, 12.96. Not the fastest, but given the few weeks to really taper and get right, she's one of those hurdlers that I said will be ushering in the new generation nation for Jamaica in the hurdles. Her speed is immaculate, and if if she hadn't suffered from the injury setbacks that she had in the past 2 years, then we would have been seeing a crazy Shericka Hill. That being said, I'm looking out for her. I'm definitely looking out for Onika Wilson, Crystal Morrison, as well as Trackies. I have been waiting for her to come through for a minute. Yannick Thompson. It hasn't happened yet. Y'all know I haven't really been a fan of how they have her hurdles. She has a way of whipping over her leg, and I think that whip action is what has led her to be consistently injured. Competing over the hurdles. But let's see what happens. With her. Demisha Roswell as well. These are athletes to really keep your eye on when it comes to the women's 100-meter hurdles. Not that many athletes are actually entered to compete in this actual event. So track is Amoy Brown. Right, I forgot about her. Can't believe I forgot about her. She was, really looking good, for the past 2 years. So I'm expecting Amoy, to come into these championships and also, figure very, very heavily when it comes to this women's 100-meter hurdles. So that final spot, in my opinion, track is up for grabs. As I said, I'm looking at Amoy Brown. I'm looking at Shericka Hill. I'm looking at Habiba Harris for that final spot. So those three, one of them I think will take that final spot. And of course, top three, as I said, I believe there's a gap between them and the rest of the field. I think Akira Nugent goes away with the win. I think Danielle Williams will be second, and I think Megan Tapple will be third, right? But let's see what happens in this women's 100-meter hurdles. As I said, I'm absolutely excited to see, the action. Now, we're going to jump over from the women's 100-meter hurdles, and yeah, we're going to jump into the one that is absolutely spicy, the women's 100 meters. Only three can go. Which three track is? Oh my gosh, it's going to be absolutely amazing and exciting. Now, in the lineup track is, the fastest Jamaican so far this season, Tia Clayton, has been having an immaculate season outside of, what happened to her racers. I'm praying it was just a cramp. I'm praying that, she's back, to her best. I know, a few persons have reported to me that, she had, tapes, on her hamstring. So, it's a little concerning, but as I said, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that she's good and ready to fly. Of course, we have collegiate, athletes as well. Shanice Walker, she's the second fastest, tied with, twin sister of Tia, actually, Tina Clayton, 10.98 seconds. So I am looking out for her. I think as things stand right now for a Shanice Walker, it's going to be tough for her, for me personally. Very tough. But again, she's here. Let's see what she'll be able to deliver. Tina Clayton, as I said, has the same time as her. Getting back into her bag incrementally. I think these two twin sisters are going to be crazy at the National Senior Championships. And it's going to take a mountainous task, as far as I'm concerned, to turn them back. Who else better, though, than a Shericka Jackson, an athlete that has clocked 10.65 seconds? She's here. She's ready to line up and run and qualify for the women's 100 meters. The only event she's done to compete in, as you all know, she is a defending champion in the women's 200 meters. So she doesn't have to worry about competing there. She's only run 100 meters all season, incidentally, only one. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens with her. Watched her last 200 meters at the Racers Grand Prix. Definitely, think she's getting back there, but the turnover isn't absolutely 100% there just yet. But I think she's getting back, to, the Shericka Jackson that, clearly ran 10.65 seconds. It's kind of strange though, because when I go back to early season and think about, Shericka Jackson clocking all those personal bests, from a 60-meter outdoor perspective coming up, she competed in the 300 meters. I talked about how impressive that 300 meters looked to me. Shericka said, she just felt willy-nilly kind of thing in the race, but I definitely thought she looked like she was just taking it easy, and she was right there with Julian Alfred, the whole way. So I definitely think that Shericka Jackson is back to being absolutely hungry and destructive. So let's see what kind of performance she'll be able to drop. The surprise package this year, I definitely think, is Briana Williams, right? She ranks in as tied fourth with Shericka Jackson with an 11.04 seconds. Her 200-meter performances, 22.69 seconds so far, is letting us know that Briana, is coming in that 100 meters, but not only the 100 meters, I've been told. But before we get, to that 200, right? The 100 meters, I definitely think that she is ready to deliver on a lot of promise, that she, showed in, previous years, right? But again, she has jumped, to different training clubs. Didn't work for her when she was in Jamaica, back in the US training. And listen, I was gonna give her some time to acclimatize, but Brianna's like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. So I was like, okay, girl, we're ready for you. So I definitely think that she's going to have a stellar race here at the senior championships. Shaylin Fraser Price, oh my gosh, she, you know, ends her career in 2025. And oh my gosh, trackies, as I said, I don't know what to think, right, with Shelly and Fraser Price, retiring. But I think I'm just going to think about this as a moment of celebration, celebrating all her hard work and all her excellence in the sport of track and field. She ranks sixth so far, this season based on times, with an 11.05 seconds, has only ran two 100s all season, right? So Shelly and Fraser Price with that 11.05. She has a windy 10.94. Definitely think that Shelly and Fraser Price is in the conversation as well and will be ready to vie, for one of those three spots. Now, outside of these athletes, trackies, these are the main set of athletes that I'm looking at. Those six athletes, right? Now, I'm also looking at a Janelle Smith. She's coming back. She has impressed me. That 11.09 seconds clock in by her, sorry, 11.10 seconds clock in by her, very, very, very impressive. I believe that was her first 100 meters all season as well. So I'm like, okay, Janelle, we've been waiting. Welcome back. Right? Another athlete that I'm keeping my eye on, and I was giving her some time as well. She switched clubs again. Alana Reed. All right, so track is back to what I was saying. Alana Reed, she really, really surprised me at the Racers Grand Prix. So I'm keeping my eye on, what kind of prospects she will come into this competition with. Absolutely. As well as, athletes such as, Kemba Nelson, Natasha Morrison, Ashanti Moore, right? Definitely keeping my eyes on these particular athletes. But I definitely think it's coming down to six athletes. It's coming down to Tia, it's coming down to, as a matter of fact, even though I said six, I mean five. Because even though Shanice Walker has clocked that 10.98, I do not think that we're going to get anything faster than a high 10.9, from her at this competition. Could be, but I'm not, foreseeing that or forecasting that. So let's see. So really and truly, in my opinion, it's coming down to five, right? It's coming down to Tia Clayton. It's coming down to Tina Clayton, Shericka Jackson, Briana Williams, and also a Shelly and Fraser Price. Those five. Tia Clayton, as far as I'm concerned, last season, looked like she could have done a 10.7. This season for sure, she has improved, drastically when it comes to her, technical capabilities. As I said, the only blotch is, her, finishing, in fifth at the Racers Grand Prix when she did pull up. That being said, I definitely think, post that, she was definitely on target to, officially run a 10.7, and I definitely think that as long as she's okay, we're expecting that 10.7. The question is, who else has 10.7 or anything faster, to take down a Tia Clayton, right? Now, Tina Clayton, she's here. Her personal best, 10.95 seconds. You can see, that she's back, to being her best, or, where we left her, a few years ago, right? Because she's had, her, struggles, getting acclimatized to professional life. Let's put it that way, right? And I definitely think this year, on the back of her, sister performing so well, she has really crunched down and is getting, amazing results. I definitely think that we could see, Tia also, not Tia, sorry, Tina, clock a new personal best. I'm expecting though in the 10.8 range. That is my expectation, right, for a Tina Clayton at this particular championships. Could it be faster? Maybe. I don't know, but let us see. That's my thought process. Shericka Jackson, as I said, only ran 100 meters all season, 11.04. She shot as her season really, really strong, right? She has looked really, really good. Taking it slow, for the most part. But as I said, looked good to me. And as I said, don't compare, really performances to her individually competing. I think it's two different, races. That being said, I think Shericka Jackson can at least get to a 10.8 low slash 10.7 high. That's my projection for her. Is it too much? I'm not sure yet, Trackies. But let's see. Let us see. I'm thinking about, how she looked in 2024 and how she looks here in 2025. And I definitely think that we can see either a 10-8 low slash, 10-7 high from her. And if we can get that out of Shericka Jackson, she's back and ready to bang. 2 months to the World Championships, it's going to be, absolute destruction. Briana Williams, oh my gosh, she is ready to deliver on promise. As I said, she's a dark horse here. Well, I don't really think it's much of a dark horse because everybody's looking out for her. She screamed at us so loudly, right? So I definitely think, 10-8 is coming. I definitely think, that mid 10-8 is coming, finally, from a Briana Williams, right? And yeah, wow, track is the times that I'm, expressing to y'all, it's crazy because that so far puts Tia in front, it puts Shericka in second, it puts Briana in third, and Tina in fourth, interestingly, right? So wow, then you have Shelly and Fraser Price. Where does this put her? As I said, when I watched her windy, 10.94, yes, it was windy, but I definitely thought, hey, Shelly and Fraser Price is back to running really, really well. Maybe not, that 10-6 performance, but, Shelly and Fraser Price can definitely give us the same kind of performance I'm expecting from Shericka Jackson, right? At low 10-8 and, or, sorry, a high 10-7. That's what I'm thinking Shelly and Fraser Price can give me. Low 10-8 or a high 10-7. So check is this makes things very interesting because I've just shoved Tina down to fifth. But Tina is the one that, is, as I said, the warrior, right? She has that mentality. She turned up at the Racers Grand Prix and she took down the whole field, right? Taking the win there, running that 10.98 seconds. So it's crazy to me that, in my estimations for, at least times, right? Times may not necessarily dictate placing, right? I'm thinking that, hey, she's behind, everybody else. But it's so crazy at this particular point in time. I don't even know what to really think. But yeah, track is, I, outside of, let's put it this way, I'm calling Tia for the team. That's a cop out. I know it's a cop out, but yeah, Tia is the only person I'm comfortable right now, calling for the team. For the other athletes, really and truly, track is, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If Shelly and Fraser Price is able to give me, that high 10-7, and also Shericka Jackson give me that high 10-7, it blocks out everybody else because I'm expecting a 10-7 from Tia Clayton. So if that's what happens, everybody else is shut out, meaning a Briana and also a Tina will be shut out of the individual team. But let's see what happens. It's gonna be interesting. And yes, as I said, I am excited. Now let's jump over into the women's 200 meters, where, as I said, we have the defending champion. So another event that we have four in because of Shericka Jackson. She will not be competing in the 200 meters. So we go with top three. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this women's 200 meters because a number of the athletes that looked good in 2020, for one being Nisha Berger, she went pro and, is clearly, taking some time to acclimatize to that pro rank. So right now, I'm a little bit confused as it relates to what to potentially expect from Anisha Berger in this women's 200 meters. But that doesn't mean that I'm counting her out, right? So let's see what she's able to really, lay down there. But one to keep an eye on in this 200 meters as well is the same Briana Williams. Briana Williams is definitely one to keep an eye on, for this women's 200 meters. Absolutely. Tia Clayton will also be there. Tina Clayton will also be there as well. Track is, as far as I'm concerned, given what I've seen, I think a lot of these athletes are in the same range. A lot of these athletes are literally in the same range when it comes to what to potentially expect from them. Gabrielle Matthews, I'm looking out for her, in this women's 200 meters. She, came back for the NCAA Outdoor Division One, track and field championships, looked good, right? So those are the athletes that I'm really, really keeping my eye on for this 200 meters. Alana Reed, I'm, a little iffy when it comes to the 200 meters. She had so much promise, as I said, from her high school days. Her 200 meters was actually her better event over the 100. However, since going pro, the 200 meters has really, fallen on the back foot, I would say, for the most part. And as things stand right now, I'm not really confident, that she'll be able to challenge for one of those three spots in the 200 meters. So right now, I'm keeping my eyes on, as I said, for the 200, Briana Williams. I'm keeping my eye on also Tia Clayton, as well as who am I missing? Oh, Sasha Lee Forbes is here as well. So I'm keeping my eye on Sasha Lee Forbes for the 200 meters. There's a name that I called earlier and I'm missing it. Okay, Gabrielle Matthews, right? So those are the athletes that I'm keeping my eye on for the women's 200 meters. We could very well get a personal best out of Brianna Williams. Actually, I'm coming to expect that at this particular point for her to give me a personal best in the 200 meters. Gonna be exciting. Can any of these other athletes, given what we've seen so far in 2024, live with a Brianna Williams that will be faster than 22.5? That is the question right now, right? So far, I'm really looking at a Gabrielle Matthews, to be fair. And also, track is someone that may surprise in this women's 200-meter field is actually Shania Douglas. She may surprise in this women's 200-meter field. So keep your eye on also a Shania Douglas. As I said, given the performances so far in the 200 meters, they're not, the best that we have seen, right? So with that being said, I think this is a lot of opportunity for, new and upcoming faces to really, get themselves into the conversation. So let's see how it goes for the women's 200 meters track is. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the women's sprints. I definitely think, things are going to be really, really exciting. And yeah, stay with TXT Track Time to get, blow by blow updates. I'm hoping that I'll be able to give you blow by blow updates because, child, when I'm in the national stadium, my service doesn't work. So let's see how that goes. Anyway, guys, like the video, of course, and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.